All right. What is up, everybody? Elijah Campbell from 107.5 The Game and the early game from 6 to 9 every morning here on The Game and The Game TV radio, which you're watching right now on this YouTube channel where you can see us every single morning. I'm Elijah Campbell live from Phoenix, Arizona, where just in a handful of hours here, we'll be tipping off between South Carolina and UConn in the women's Final Four, UCLA and Texas. After that, sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas and Forest Lake Travel. Tell you more about them here in just a little bit, but I need to give you my keys for tonight's game, right? The most important things for South Carolina to be able to avenge the loss in the national title last year to UConn and to be able to give UConn that first L and make it to the national championship game. Now, it's a daunting task, right? UConn has been an absolute buzzsaw all season long. We know what this program is historically. 12 national titles over the course of 30 some odd years. Gina Wariyama has been the face of the sport when it comes to just prolonged dominance over the course of the decades. This UConn team, or this program, has that reputation because they have done nothing but win. And last year you saw them win their first title since 2016, breaking maybe the longest drought that Gino's had, right? When it comes to being the head coach over at UConn, and they did it in dominant fashion. And then this year they've done nothing but win in dominant fashion. Really, the only game that's been within 10 points for UConn was a game in November against Michigan. And Michigan got it to where it ended up being a 72-69 final score. Very low scoring game. But if you look at, what UConn has done, you can look at the schedule in the Big East and say, well, do the whole Paul Feinbaum thing. They don't play nobody, Paul. Well, you'd be correct in the Big East. The Big East is incredibly weak, and South Carolina is incredibly battle tested. The SEC is as good this year as it's ever been. I'd say the SEC and the Big Ten were the two best conferences in women's college basketball. And the South Carolina team is certainly coming into a Final Four playing better than they did going into last season's Final Four. I think when you look at last year's game, if we want to try to find similarities, there isn't a ton in terms of how the teams are playing going into it. UConn was playing their best basketball in the last couple months of the year. Last year, UConn actually took some losses in non-conference play and then found their stride in January, February, March. And in February, they did absolutely take it to South Carolina at CLA in what was a kind of a shell-shocking loss for South Carolina. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the type of blowout that we see tonight, or an 82-59 game, which is the final score in that championship game. A lot of things are different. There are not a lot of similarities. You can find more differences, right? Even though there's going to be some similar faces on both teams, you look at it and you look at South Carolina and UConn's starting lineups going into that national championship game. Out of the 10 starters in that game, only 3 are going to be starters tonight, if based off of the starting lineups we've seen from the last few games. And that's Sarah Strong and AZ Fudd for UConn, Raven Johnson for South Carolina. Now, it's not as many of the losses for UConn. I mean, Paige Beckers is one of the all-time greats in the sport. She's not coming back. She's, in the WNBA, won't be playing naturally. But there are some players that did start for UConn in that game that now come off the bench, right? And mostly Jana El-Alfi as one of the other bigs, complementary bigs next to Sarah Strong. She comes off the bench this year, has only started one game. You look at KK Arnold, who came off the bench in that national championship game. She has been starting for UConn in the last few games. There's a whole lot of mixing it up in terms of what the lineups look like. And for South Carolina, look, Tessa Johnson and Joyce Edwards played a lot of minutes last year, but they came off the bench. They're going to be starting tonight. Really, for South Carolina, what the big difference is UConn hasn't had to play against Tanai Latson and Medina Okot, along with this collection of talent for the South Carolina Gamecocks. I think that makes things a little bit different. But when it comes to what needs to happen in this game, you look at UConn and it's daunting, man. You see the wins, you see the offensive numbers. They're the best shooting team in America, 2-point, 3-point, most well-rounded offense. They can get their buckets wherever. And when you look at what they do from the 3-point line, it's almost as a team getting close to making 40%. 3 players, right? When it comes to Sarah Strong, who is making 40%, AZ Fudd, who is making a whopping 45.5%, and then Ali Zybel, who's making 41% from 3, and all of them have shot over 100 3-pointers on the year. AZ Fudd specifically has shot over 200 3-pointers on the year, meaning she's made well over 100 threes this season. It is an incredibly daunting task, and it's not going to be a small feat. And we've talked about it all week. We've really played this game up because of how big of a challenge this is to play a 38-0 team that is looking to defend their national title against a program that is the most iconic in your sport. But I've narrowed it down to a few things here. And there are a lot of different things you can go to. I could probably make this list instead of just 3. I could have made this list a list of 10 different things that you're going to have to do. And more than likely, you'd have to accomplish at least 8 to be able to win this game. That's how hard this is. That's how good of an opponent UConn is. But the first thing is, maybe to me the most important one that I've settled on, is run them off the 3-point line. Look, they shoot a lot of threes on a per game basis. If you just look at what this UConn team has done this year on a per game basis, they're taking about 24 threes a game. And some of their worst offensive performances this year have come when they've shot 20 or less. And if you look at the 2 lowest scoring totals that UConn has scored this year, they took 23s against North Carolina in the Sweet 16, only made 4 of them, and as a result, they only scored 63 points. The problem for the Tar Heels is they only scored 42, so still end up winning by 20-plus points. And then Notre Dame in the Elite 8, they only shot 17 threes, made only 6, which still 35%, still really good, but you didn't get killed with a 3-point shot because they didn't take a ton of them. They only scored 70. The 70 and the 63 were the 2 lowest scoring totals that Connecticut's had all year long. There's at least maybe a blueprint there for South Carolina to follow. And if you can run them off the 3-point line and make them have to shoot tougher contested 2s, especially in the mid-range area, and it's not as simple as, oh, they make them shoot mid-range jumpers. You still got to be able to contest them, because what this team is in UConn isn't just a great 3-point shooting team, a good paint scoring team. They're an elite mid-range shooting team. However, 2 is not as much as 3. And still, even an elite mid-range shooting team is still making those mid-range shots at about 45%. I'll take those numbers there. And ironically enough, on the way over here from my flight from St. Louis to Phoenix, I was reading Basketball Beyond Paper by Dean Oliver, widely considered to be the godfather of basketball analytics. And he's talking about a study that he conducted where he kind of came to this conclusion that contested shots at the rim take more percentage points off field goal percentage than contested shots from 3, right? The closer you are to the shooter from a 3-point range usually has a difference of about 1 to 2%, right? Depending on the proximity of defender and shooter. That gets up to 7 or 8% when it gets to the lane, right? Or in the painted area. When you're really close to the player, it has a much bigger effect. So really, if you want to kind of construct a defense to stop a team like UConn, if you funnel them into Medina Okot, or if Joyce Edwards plays like she did against TCU, where she got 3 blocks, and a lot of those were help side blocks too, and you funnel them into an aggressive helping defense in the paint that can match you in size and can match you in aggression and rebounding ability, you have a chance to keep UConn in that ballpark of scoring that is good enough for you to win. I think this game has to be won in the mid-60s or early 70s. And that can be done defensively if you don't let UConn hit a ton of threes, right? That's the thing. If it's harder to keep a team scoring under 75 points if they're banging home 12 or 13 threes. That's the nature of the game right there, right? If they hit a bunch of those, they're more so looking at scoring in the 80s. But I don't know if that happens tonight. I think South Carolina keeps this game incredibly close, in large part because of their ability to run UConn off the 3-point line. If they can't do that and they don't do that early, it's going to be a long day, and it's going to be something that might resemble what you saw last year. To me, the most important thing for this team right now and going into tonight is making sure you run those lethal 3-point shooters off the 3-point line. Make them put the ball on the deck. Make them dribble into your gap help defense. That's the thing about this South Carolina team that's been awesome all season long, and it's a staple under Dawn Staley, is the fact that they do help so well defensively off the ball. They force a lot of live ball turnovers because of that gap help defense where somebody's driving, and if they get a step on the person guarding them, someone comes in, shades in, and maybe pokes the ball out or forces that ball handler to have to hesitate for a little bit. make them have to do that. Make them have to make decisions, make more decisions throughout the course of a 30-second shot clock possession. And then we can maybe really get into something in terms of holding them to a limited scoring total. And if you do that, you give yourself a chance. And none of these things I'm saying here is going to guarantee victory. Nothing guarantees victory against UConn, because a team like UConn doesn't just take matching some keys and executing a couple of key things, but it also requires a little bit of luck and some divine intervention, because they are that good, because you're not going to take away everything, right? So these aren't guarantees that you win the game, but it certainly is going to give you a better chance to win the game. And that's all you can ask for in a one-game setting, where you just need to win this game and advance to the national title game. Number 2 is rebound. Obviously, rebounding is a big deal in any basketball game. It's one of those things that analysts can just point to and say, for any given game, hey, win the rebounding battle. It almost has become cliche. But the reason that I put this here is because there is a rebounding advantage that you can have. UConn doesn't have a ton of weaknesses when it comes to the 4 factors of winning games, which is effective field goal shooting, offensive rebound percentage, turnover percentage, and free throw rate. Now, they don't get to the free throw line a lot at all, mostly because they just don't have to, right? So, and they shoot a lot of jump shots. It's this kind of, it's less of a deficiency, more so a feature of their offense, right? They just make a lot of jumpers. So they don't really have to be that aggressive in getting to the line. But when it comes to rebounding, UConn is outside the top 70 in both offensive and rebounding, or offense and defensive rebounding rate, right? So meaning if you're not shooting the ball very well from the outside, there's a good chance that you can grab second or third opportunities in each possession. You can prolong the game by prolonging possessions, by crashing the glass, getting offensive rebounds. And who knows, maybe your best offense tonight can be a missed 3-pointer that Medina Okot grabs, or Joyce Edwards grabs and is able to put up for 2. Or if Raven crashes the glass, she can get it, put it up for 2. That can't be your best offense sometimes. I'm not saying, be as extreme like Texas A&M men's basketball a couple of years ago, when Wade Taylor would shoot 40 shots and they would just grab offensive rebounds. That was the only time they were ever efficient. No, I mean, you're going to have to make some shots from the field. Yeah, you'd like to see Tessa bang home a few threes, but there's a good chance that if the shots aren't going in as much, just the ability to prolong possessions, create second chance opportunities, again, gives you a chance. Last thing I'm looking for tonight too, and again, I could make this list 10 items long, but I'm narrowing it down to 3. Can you get Joyce Edwards to tap into something different? Now, she's been awesome this year, and she's got a historic scoring start to her career at South Carolina, and for good reason. She's so hard to guard, and she is so skilled, and you've seen some growth from Joyce over the last 2 years. But tonight, she's facing off against Sarah Strong. They're in the same freshman class. Sarah Strong got all the national freshman accolades, and then they played in the national title game, and Sarah Strong had a remarkable game, clearly outplayed Joyce in that game. Joyce Edwards remembers this type of stuff. She remembers, and she's going to want to change that narrative, and tonight's the perfect opportunity for her. She's going to get her shot at Sarah Strong again. Can she be able to tap into something special, a special performance that is, instead of 23 or 24 points, can she get you to 30? Can she be the bucket that you need late in the game? Because I do believe this game is going to be significantly closer than it was in Tampa Bay for the national title game last year. Again, that was an 82-59 game, and I don't believe UConn scoring over 82. I don't believe South Carolina scoring under 60 again. We're going to meet in the middle somewhere. And if we're meeting in the middle somewhere, that means we can be in a 2 or 3 possession game, maybe even a 1 possession game at the under 4 timeout in the fourth quarter. And if that's the case, Joyce can be your go-to bucket, because there's an extra level of motivation outside of just getting to a national championship game. It should be a fantastic game. If I had to do an EBPI meter on this, an Elijah Basketball Power Index, I think UConn probably is a 55% chance to win, and South Carolina 45%. That's how highly I think of this South Carolina team. And there's a really good chance that South Carolina does end up winning this game. I think they have a better chance to win this game than maybe a lot of national people do. You go on ESPN.com and you look, and they all pick UConn. Some of them have UConn winning by multiple possessions. I think this thing ends up being really close, but we'll get my reaction tomorrow here on the Game TV radio. Big shout out to our sponsors. The reason that I'm able to do this, able to travel here, able to talk basketball with you, is from 2 folks that I want to thank here. Griffin Pools and Spas. Look, this weekend, Griffin Pools and Spas is your HQ for family fun and outside enjoyment because they offer Latham fiberglass pools, Imperial vinyl pools, above ground pools, spas by Bullfrog, Marquee, Tropic Seas, and Generations, and swim spas. It's family owned and operated for 50 years. Discover that Griffin Pools and Spas difference. Griffin Pools and Spas, they make you feel good. And when it comes to Forest Lake travel, look, I myself, not a great traveler. I'm not very organized. It is a personal flaw of mine, but Daisy Miller and Forest Lake Travel do such a remarkable job of making sure that even a goof like me can get to where I need to be, because I get bad travel anxiety too. But when it comes to what they do, they set up everything. When it comes to your travel itinerary, they make sure that there's room for error, because we all know flights can get delayed or moved or things like that. Daisy is so quick with it, and she's so good at being able to set up your trip to where you get to where you need to go, and taking that added stress of travel logistics off of your plate, right? The ultimate luxury is peace of mind. And through Virtuoso, Forest Lake Travel has deep, trusted connections globally, right? So this isn't just domestic travel. This is everywhere, man. Ensuring that every journey that they plan with you is effortless, meaningful, perfectly tailored to you. Those connections that they have, I meant, again, very well connected, give you access to preferred rates and availability, room upgrades when available, complimentary daily breakfast for two, dining, resort, hotel, or shipboard credits, early check-in and late checkout when available, exclusive amenities and experiences, exclusive shore excursions on cruise vacations, anything you can think of. If you're planning a getaway, or you just need to do what I do and get somewhere for work, do not hesitate to give Daisy Miller and Forest Lake Travel a call. Big thanks to those sponsors. I'm so excited for this basketball game. I'll be live tweeting at E_Campbell3. You'll get game updates at 1075 The Game on Twitter. And of course, I will react to everything tomorrow morning. And until then, enjoy the game tonight, and we'll see if South Carolina is playing for another national championship on Sunday. See you then.